All right. What is up, guys? I'm going to let, I know there's a little bit of a delay. So I'm going to let some people hop on here. Wonder where I can see the people that hop on. Oh, we got two people there. Cool. I'm going to let some people hop on here. We're going to talk deposits. This should be a super simple and cool training, actually. So I'm super excited to give it to you. It's funny because with deposits, it's something that, and let me know if, like, drop it in the chat if you can hear me okay as well. But yeah, okay, we got some likes rolling in. Cool. I don't know how I even access I posted this text here, which I think is like making me not be able to see the comments. Oh, here we go. Cool. What's up, Jeff? You got Justin Marshall, Tyler, Larissa. What's up? What's up? Paulo, what's up, man? Let me know if you guys can hear me okay. But I was gonna say we're gonna talk about deposits, which is it's a funny thing that it's funny because it's one of those things I learned this super early on in my selling career. And if you're, super advanced or you're a pretty good closer, full disclosure, this may or may not be a new thing to you. Okay. I feel like I learned it pretty early on. And, I didn't even realize it's like one of those things you don't realize it's a problem until you start reviewing a lot of client calls and just kind of going through client work and speaking with clients and seeing where they're tripping up with this. And it's funny is just because I see so many mistakes with deposit closing and people thinking like they don't know how to deposit close, when in reality, if you go about it the way I'm going to show you, what you're going to realize is that you can really do it in like 3 easy steps, more or less. And at the same time, if you do it the way I'm going to show you, and it works out for you, 90% of the time they're going to deposit close. The other, if you don't proceed throughout the whole entire 3 steps, the other alternative is that you're actually going to get the real objection, which smokescreen objections and not trying to cover deposits with or trying to cover objections with deposit closing is why so many people screw up with that. So anyhow, I think some people are on here. We got 14 people on. Obviously, I'm going to post this in the group afterwards. Let me know if you can see, as I switch screens back and forth, let me know if you can see my screen, because after I go to this screen, I can't see you guys. But anyhow, I got this cool Google Doc for you guys. This is a very small bit of what I teach some of my private clients. I just kind of made a few shifts in this document just to give you guys some context. But the biggest thing I want you guys from first is like, what are your biggest challenges in Roblox when taking deposits? So drop them in the chat over here. Gio says he really struggles with them. Cool, man. Like, give me some more info. Nate, let me know what you struggle with. Drop what your questions are in the chat, or what your biggest roadblocks with deposits or even with objections are. And then maybe at the end we can do like kind of like AMA, ask me anything, and I can roll through some of these and help you guys. But what we're really going to cover is the language that we use to close deposits and or refundable deposits and non-refundable deposits. Okay, same thing. All right. Now, this is where it gets important. So when do we use this? So this is very, very important, guys. We only use this when the prospect is 100% tied down on the process, okay? Which, the way my private clients do it and the way I teach them, they're going to be very, very, by the time we even get to this point, guys, they're so tied down that this is the right thing, now's the right time. And we basically narrowed it down and gotten very, very specific and had an honest conversation. And we figured out that it's just timing or finances standing in the way, okay? Sometimes, depending on the husband, wife, or spouse partner dynamic, it's appropriate to go for a deposit. A lot of times, I'm not a big fan. Depends on your offer, is why I give different advice in regards to that, to a weight loss offer versus a business offer, but that's a different discussion for a different time. So the purpose of this, and this is pretty straightforward, guys, for deposits, to get them financially committed to some form of action. okay? It's gonna help lock in further follow-up calls. The conversions and the show-up rates on those follow-ups are gonna be higher, and if they decide not to do it, usually they'll show up and at least tell you, which then you can have an honest conversation, and if it's appropriate for the person to do it, if it's the best thing for them, you can realign them with that, okay? Let me know if that's making sense. We're gonna get into a few important key distinctions here in just a second. Nicole says she's made it, but she's late. No worries. Cool. So some key distinctions. This is also going to be substituted with kind of like the biggest mistakes that I see. Now, you know, this is kind of taken partially from my training. So if you do everything I've taught in week 4, which is in my objection handling process, if you try to deposit close without doing what I teach before, which we teach something called pacing the first objection and a few different frameworks before you even get to this, this is not going to work, okay? But in short, here's what you guys need to know in this group. They have to be tied down to the process, okay? They have to be tied down to the fact that this is the right thing and now is the right time, okay? So anything that's uncertainty based in terms of an objection, like I want to think about it. This is not the way I make decisions. You know, I need to do some research. I need to do due diligence. I need to talk to one of your clients. Is there a guarantee? I mean, all of these very like, I just call them uncertainty-based objections. All of those, this is not how a deposit is not how you overcome those, guys. Like I see so many people to where the prospect's like, oh, okay, you know, I want to think about it. And, you know, they do the typical can thing that I don't like, by the way. Okay, well, what is it that you need to think about? Which, by the way, guys, don't do that. And then the prospect's like, well, I don't know. I just need to think about it. I'm just not sure. I don't make decisions on the first call, blah, 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 blah. Great. And then the prospect or the closer goes, we have a process for that. It's a refundable deposit, blah, 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 right? That's the wrong way to do this, guys. And I see that all the time. That's why I did this training, as I was so tired of seeing this. I see that all the time is like, you can't use a deposit as a way to cover an objection, an uncertainty-based objection especially, right? You can use it to help people through logistics, but not objections, okay? So let me kind of show you over, let me know if that makes sense, guys. It's about to make more sense. I'm gonna show you a cool diagram. Cool. We got 26 people on here. What's going on? So basically, here's an objection handling process in a nutshell. This is what I teach my private clients, but this is the process at a high level. There's the investment drop, okay? The investments drops after what's called the committing phase. So basically in the committing phase, before the investment, I teach my clients how to get very, very certain on, or how to get their prospects very, very certain on the process, okay? Because before I even go into money, before I even go into the monies, I want my prospects certain that this is the right thing, now is the right time, okay? Before we even go into the investment. Now, then we're gonna go into the investment, and it's funny, especially with high ticket, people will be super certain about the process, we go into the investment, and then that level of certainty drops, okay? So they'll give a lot of times an objection. No matter what I give them, or no matter what the prospect gives our clients, in terms of objections or in terms of anything that's, a lot of times it's not even quote unquote objections, it's just very ambiguous language, okay? What we do is we go through this framework that's called pacing the first objection and tying down the certainty in the process. What that elicits is basically one or two outcomes. Either we isolate that, hey, they think this is the right thing, now is the right time, and we move on to financial or spouse partner, or what we're gonna do is we're gonna weed out specific uncertainty objections, okay? So there's 3 types of objections, by the way. There's uncertainty, financial, and I call them support, which is basically partner spouse. So uncertainty, financial, support. So what we wanna do is we wanna tie down on the certainty first and weed out any uncertainty objections before we ever handle financial, partner, or spouse, okay? Because here's the thing, what I see a lot of times is investment drop, ambiguous language / kind of objection, whatever. They don't do any of this, and then they're like, they start giving payment plans and, okay, well, how can we make this work for you? Why is it too, like, if we're handling financial, we're handling spouse, we don't even know if they think this is the right thing, now is the right time, right? So we have to tie down on the certainty and really weed these out before we even touch these. Like, we have to make them certain that this is the right thing, now is the right time. Now, I have like very in-depth frameworks for this that I teach clients. I mean, it's going to be beyond the scope of this training. It's a little bit longer to teach, but what we're talking about is deposits. Well, the reason I'm telling you guys all of this is if you don't have them certain that this is the right thing, now's the right time, and you go for a deposit, you're not going to get it. Okay. Now, thankfully, the framework I want to teach you is going to make sure you enter into that conversation with some certainty, but doing this stuff that I teach my private clients beforehand is also going to help. So anyhow, I hope that makes sense and kind of gives you guys some clarity there. You can drop it in the chat if that makes sense, or if it doesn't, let me know. But and that's why I put here, like, the biggest mistake I see entrepreneurs and salespeople make with deposits is like the prospect not being certain this is the right thing, now's the right time, and the deposit is like a band-aid on a bleeding artery, right? They're trying to like close the prospect without the prospect even being certain that this is what they want to do. Okay, so your utmost priority is leading the prospect to believe that this is the right thing, now is the right time. I've said that like 9 times now, but it's that important. And then the deposit is only going to be something you do when you get logistics. Okay, so if you guys want to know more about all of this, because I know I mentioned a lot here, but it's just, I'd be remiss just to give you like the language and the framework without kind of giving you full context of where this fits in. Okay, so if you want to learn more about this stuff, as well as get like this document and little something special I got for you as well, drop certainty in the comments in the chat. Drop certainty in there, and I'll make sure that you guys get this document and some other cool stuff I put together for you guys. So the general framework, I know I said this is 3 steps and I chunked it down even more. I just wasn't really thinking about it. The general framework is tie down is step 1, tie down again is step 2, and then reassure and pitch and price drop, right? That's really step 3, and take the deposit. Okay, if you chunk it down even further, it's tie down number 1, tie down number 2, reassure, pitch, reason why, risk removal, tie down, price drop, take deposit or objections. Okay, this will all make sense in just a second. I don't expect this to make sense just giving you this framework. So let's get into the specific language. So I'm going to go through this and I'm going to explain why we're doing what we're doing after we go through the entire thing. Okay, so let's say we're at the end of the call, and in this scenario, I'm a sales rep, let's say, for an agency business growth offer. Okay, so let's say somebody who I just have clients who sell this stuff, so it's top of mind, but somebody who, it's a consultancy, they help agency owners specifically, you know, get 3 to 5 high ticket clients a month and be able to scale to around $30,000 to $50,000 a month, and they're done for you agency. Okay, so I'm selling that. It's a really successful program. That's like the context of this offer. So we get to the end and the prospect's basically saying they're all in. You know, this sounds great. I just want to move money around. Okay, that's the objection. Okay, so we would say, okay, great. So just to be sure, having to move money around aside, is there anything else that's keeping you from being less than 100% certain that this is what you want to do? And then they're going to say, oh no, this is what I want to do. Cool. So just to clarify, that aside, what you're saying is you're 100% in. And they say yes. Great, awesome, man. Well, happy to hear that you're committed to getting on board. And you know, the moving money around stuff, that happens all the time. So totally normal. What we do in cases where somebody's 100% in, it's just a matter of timing or a matter of moving the money around, is take a refundable deposit. It's completely refundable, so it's not committing you to the program or anything, but it just allows us to know on the back end that this is something that you want to do, so we can get everything set up and also get you started on some preliminary homework, so that once the funds actually do come in, you're 100% ready to hit the ground running. And then if for any reason you have like a life crisis or something and you can't do it, no worries, we just send that back to you. Sound good? And they're going to say yes, and you say, you sure? Cool. So the deposit is just 1K. So what's your billing address? So let's break this down. And it's super hard. Like, I do this all the time for our client trainings. When I read scripting like this, it just, to me, it naturally sounds way more scripted. Okay, so this will sound very more, and you know, it's going to be in good dialogue. It'll be much more natural. Whenever I read it out loud to you guys, for the sake of reading it out loud, it's going to sound salesier. Okay, so it's not as probably salesy as it sounds. So this is tie down number 1. That aside, right, objection aside, is there anything else that's keeping you from being less than 100% certain that this is what you want to do, that this is the shortest pathway to get into where you want to go? Great. So that aside, you're 100% in. Now, I use these, and people will get kind of both ways about this. I use 100% purposely for both of these for a very specific reason. I want to make sure, like, I'm almost trying to get them to say no here, okay? Because then I can get to deal with the real objection. That's the whole point. But if I use some weak tie down language here and they say yes without really them meaning it, this isn't going to work, okay? So what I'm trying to do here is I tie down twice. That aside, you're 100% in. The reason I tie down twice is I'm building consistency. And the whole purpose of this is, if we go back to this, I don't want to handle financial spouse or even deposits. Like, you could put deposits down here, for instance. I don't want to handle that until I know there's no uncertainty-based objections. Okay, so like, I'm kind of trying to weed any uncertainty that they're not being honest with me about. I'm trying to weed that out with the pasting the first objection and this tie down framework. Okay, so I tie down twice, and then I basically reassure. Awesome, man. I mean, you know, if they're going to tell me, hey, look, I'm 100% in twice in a row, I'm going to take their word for it and say, awesome, man. Well, congratulations. I'm really happy you're, going to get on board. And look, moving money around, especially this time around, it's taxes, totally normal. Okay, where I'm reassuring that it's not I'm not shaming here. It's, dude, totally normal. Get it. What we do in cases, so now I'm going to lead. I'm not going to say, what do you think about doing a deposit? No. What we do in cases where somebody's 100% in, just a matter of moving money around, is we take a refundable deposit. And then now what I'm going to do is give the reason why we do it and remove the risk. Okay? It's completely refundable, so it's not committing you to the program, but it just allows us to know that you're in, so we can set everything up on the back end and get you started on some homework ahead of time, so that in 3 days, once the funds come in, you already have a few things in place and you're really ready to hit the ground running. Okay? So that's a preeminent reason why, is like, yeah, man, this allows you to get a little bit of head start. So in 3 days, when your time, when you're, whatever, 8 to 12 weeks officially starts, you're really ready to hit the ground running. And then I remove the risk. If there's any reason you have, a life crisis, something you can't do it, no worries. It's non-committal. We can send that right back to you. Okay, so this is really, really key here. Now, what I will add, and let me know if you guys have questions on this. What do we got here? Jeff Miller says, nice. Kara says, hello. Hello, Kara. We got one certainty, two certainties. Okay, so some people a little bit interested in that. That's cool. Cool. So let me know if you guys have questions. I didn't see very many on here. Cool. So back to where we were. What we're doing is removing the risk. Now, what we could also do here is, I like to, and this is a little bit advanced, and this is actually, a lot of times, this is actually what I do. So I'm going to mention it to you guys, but this will work. What I highlighted here, this will work. But a lot of times I like to frame it as it's the deposit's all about committing to their vision. So I'll say, like, look, I'll still say this. What we do in cases where somebody's 100% in, just a matter of moving money around, just take a refundable deposit. One, that just lets us know you're in. And two, that's a way for you to metaphorically draw the line in the sand and step across it and say that you're done with being on the lead generation roller coaster and going up and down and not having the business that you truly want. And you're ready to step forward, and then not just having the financial security and control that you want for your lifetime, but also being the father you want for your kids, like you told me you wanted to. So, and by the way, if there's any other reason you have a life crisis or something, you can't do the deposit, we just send that right back to you. So I just made that up on the spot, but I make it about, like, the deposit is a metaphor. It's like a metaphoric commitment to their vision. So now it's all about them. I've had tremendous success with that language, and that's what I'll usually try to do. But if not, like, because you don't want to say that and it be like weird, or it's not specific to their language or whatever. So you can always default on this. It's just not as preeminent. Okay. Now, if you notice what I did here, I always tie down the deposit without telling them what the deposit is, okay? Because a lot of times when people, I do this purposely because, not to trick them, I'm going to tell them what it is, right? Like, but when you ask for the deposit, a lot of times they'll give a reflex and they'll say no. And so I want to know if it's a reflex ahead of time, because if they say no without knowing what the amount is, that's a really interesting thing I want to point out to them that they just did. Because then it's like, okay, well, we obviously weren't on the same page here. But I'll say, sound good? You sure? I usually, I'm always very, like, I just want to make sure somebody feels good before they make a commitment. So I'll be like, yeah, man, you sure? Awesome. So the deposit is just 1K, and then I just go into billing address. Okay, it'll tell me if they can't do it. So, so the reason I do this is because some people, and this is very rare, will say no before the amount of the deposit. I hope that makes sense, guys. Okay, and we handle that differently. So that's scenario one. So now we're going to get into overcoming the resistance on the deposit. Okay, so let me see if we got questions here, because we're going to move into the resistance. James Vasquez says good. Cool. So as we move into the resistance, let's talk about scenario one here, okay? So let's say they said no before you actually told them the deposit amount. All right, so again, like, sound good? They're like, oh no, I'm not gonna do that, right? They don't even know the amount, okay? So we're gonna say, okay, man, well, how do you mean? Gotcha, well, I can appreciate that. Now, can I be honest with you for a second? You just got done telling me you were 100% in, and now it just kind of seems like you're having some problems with 100% fully refundable deposit, which you don't even know the amount of. Like, I could have said it was $50. So what's really going on here? And now I laughed there on purpose, okay? Because it's like, I don't want this to become combative. Like, I want all of my end of the call stuff, like after this investment drop, okay? I want everything after that to be very cooperative, not combative, okay? So like, I'm gonna laugh with them about what they just did, because it's kind of funny that they just said no. Like, they just told me twice they're 100% in. They just had to move money around, 100%. And then they don't know the amount, and they say no, right? Like, it could have been $50, who knows, right? So, hey man, what's really going on? Now we have to have an honest conversation. Sometimes they're just gonna tell you, you know, they'll probably fall into one of the categories we're gonna go into when you get into scenario two, which is a little bit more common. But this is one and some language you can use specifically for this. Now, here's the thing, is that I'll preface this by saying, guys, if you get these two tie downs, unless like you just totally misread the situation and they don't have like 1K to their name, or they're just really in a financially bad spot, if you get these two, you're gonna get the deposit. Okay. The reason I see most people screw this up is they just don't do this, which is fascinating, right? I learned this really, really early on, but that's why I'm sharing it with you guys, because I just don't see a lot of people doing it. So anyhow, that was scenario one. Now let's go into scenario two. So let's say they say no after you told them the deposit amount. Okay, so okay, what's the deposit? They said 1K, and they're like, oh no, I can't do that. Great, definitely, man. Well, I can appreciate that. Now, just to clarify for a second, when you say you can't do the deposit, do you mean you just don't feel like the deposit is an appropriate next step at this moment? Or two, do you feel like, you know, finances are so tight right now that 1K would jeopardize your ability to, like, you know, keep the lights on, pay the bills, all the essentials? Okay. And then we're going to get some specific outcomes here. Now, I want to show you what I did here, because there's lessons in this language here that are going to proceed, or not proceed, but they go beyond just this whole deposit thing, okay? So at the end of the call, sometimes, and I'm not a very, like, if you get to the end of the call with me, it's not going to be very pressury. Like I said, I like to make it more cooperative than combative. But sometimes, you know, prospects, they have these conditioned buyer defenses. All right, it's like a conditioned buyer's response, which is a lot of times while they'll say no after they just said yes twice in a row. It's just a reflex that, like, keeps them from making impulse decisions that a lot of times they've built through years and years and years of sometimes making bad decisions buying, right? So a lot of times we need to help them through that and make them feel good about it. So with that being said, partially because of that reason, and, you know, sometimes they've been burned, it's a lot of different things. It's not just because you're pressuring them. I'm not saying that. Prospects will get to the end of the call and they'll be very, like, croc brain, to put it in Oren Klaff terms. So they'll be very, like, fight or flight. All right, they're not using logic. It's even past a little bit emotional. It's like fight or flight brain, right? And so sometimes if you start to kind of be a little bit invasive or step over your boundaries, the prospect's going to shut down. Okay, or if they start to have to think too much and complicate things, they're going to shut down. All right, so I do this. Is it this or this? Is it one or two, A or B? I do that all the time. okay? Especially when we get to the end of the call. Very neutral, very grounded tonality. I'm totally chill. They could say anything, they're not gonna throw me off. I'm the oak tree, okay? But I'm gonna give them two options. Is it this or is it this? Now, what's great is it really can only be one of these two things. It's either, the, you know, and look, if their finances are so tight they can't do a 1K deposit, that's totally fine. We can talk about that. Or if they don't feel like the deposit is an appropriate next step at this moment, then that's a whole different issue. Now we have some coachability issues. So if it's not appropriate, we're going to proceed to step 2 or scenario 2, part 2. If it's finances, what we need to do is get cash on hand / credit, and then we need to do a more appropriate amount, right? You know, they might have, you know, I was listening to a call the other day where there was a situation where the deposit could have been handled a little bit better just because the guy had this tax situation. He just emptied out his funds, but he was getting more funds in like 2 days. You know, a 1K might not have been appropriate, but $500 totally appropriate, right? But we don't know what is appropriate unless we know what his exact cash on hand and credit is. So you can move into that at this point. However, if you're one of my clients, you should already know what their cash on hand or credit is way before you get to this part of the call, okay? So let's move on to this scenario 2. Now, is this making sense so far? I keep checking in. James Vasquez says fire. What's up, Jamie? Vincent, I'm not sure what you're referring to. Cool. So let's move into scenario 2, part 2. So this is going to be when they say it's not appropriate, okay? And now this is where we have to give a little bit of leadership, because remember, they just told us twice they're 100% in. This is what they want to do. They feel like this is the right thing. Now's the right time. They've been through all this other stuff, if you're a private client of mine, that they're going to teach. And they get to the end and they're going to say, oh, well, I just don't feel like that's appropriate. So you have to realign them, because now it's a coachability issue. Okay. Hey, can you help me understand something for a second? You know, you just got done telling me a second ago you're 100% in, but now, you know, it seems like you're saying you're uncomfortable putting down a fully refundable no risk deposit on something you just said you're 100% in on 2 seconds ago. So, I mean, just be honest with me, like what's really going on here? Okay. Sometimes this will be enough. We might get the real objection, an uncertainty-based objection, to where now we have to go handle that and work our way all the way back down the process. Or who knows? You know, sometimes they might just be like, I don't know, I am 100% and I just don't want to do the deposit, right? It just kind of doesn't make any sense. And so if that's the case, then we're going to proceed below. Okay. Hopefully, a lot of times, if you get this far, first of all, this is rarely ever going to happen that you're even going to get this far. Second of all, if you do, with this language piece here, you're going to get the real objection out of this, and then you can proceed and handle that and reclose properly. But sometimes, man, people are just scared. They want to do it, and you just need to lead them a little bit. So this is how you would do that. Let's take a step back here for a second. Why did you come on this call? To fix your business and lead generation, right? To scale up to $50,000 a month, if I'm wrong. So look, not only have we figured out that problem ourselves and we're way past $50,000 a month, we have hundreds of clients past that mark too, which means we have a proven process to get that outcome, which is exactly what you came on this call to get, right? And look, the refundable deposit is that first step in the proven process. And here's where I'm not really connecting the dots, and what worries me is that the very first step in the process that I tell you to do, you have a problem with, then, I mean, if I can be honest, how do you expect me to lead you along the entire process to the result that you want? So look, can we have an honest conversation about this, or where do you want to go from here? So if we don't get, like, and a lot of times what I'll do is I'll be like, hey man, is it just nerves? Is it just like some fear? And then I can coach them through that. Or again, I just want to get the real objection. Like, I'm not opposed to objections. I just need to know what they are, because I can handle, I mean, if I know what they are, I can handle it easy. But a lot of times where people trip up is they just don't know what the objections actually are. They're not weeding those out, and they're actually running away from them opposed to running towards them. Okay. So I stuttered, you know, like crazy through this, but this is going to be, you know, this is a rhetorical question. Okay. So you're not going to let them answer this one. And then you're going to, you know, they'll say yes as soon as you get to here. And then you want to get through this. They'll say yes again. And then proceed into this. Okay. Then you have to have an honest conversation, figure out if it's it's fear, nerves, which could be one thing, easy to coach people through that. Or it could be you get the real objection, which is great too. So again, as I read this, if this does seem a little salesy, when you actually do it in dialogue and with good neutral tonality, it's not going to seem that way, okay? And believe it or not, I've used this several times, and I would say 80% of the time, if not more, we just find out, hey, they're a little bit nervous, maybe they got burned in the past, and we just need to have an honest conversation about that and reassure them it's the right thing. And look, do the refundable deposit, sleep on it, make sure it's the right thing. And if we hop on in 2 or 3 days and at the bottom of your bones it's like the wrong decision and it's not the right thing at the right time, like we'll make it right, dude. So using this most of the times in my experience is going to work, and it's a lot of times just nerves. So let me see if you guys have questions. If not, we're going to wrap this up. I wanted to keep it as a quick training to add to the little free course I give you guys. Yeah, I don't think we have any questions. Cool. So I'm going to add this to units tab. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I mean, for some of you guys, if you're maybe a little bit more on the advanced side, this might not be new to you. This might be a little bit of a review. If some of you guys are a little bit newer, hopefully this is going to help. Yeah, Nicole said this doesn't come out pushy at all. Yeah, it really shouldn't, especially if you do it with dialogue. It's just sometimes when you're reading it to yourself, it's like you just kind of speed up your tone, and it might sound a little bit salesier than it is. But anyhow, I'm gonna end this video now, guys. Let me know if you have questions. You can tag me in the comments, tag me in the group, comment. Thank you, Nate. Comment, what was it? Certainty. If you want the document that was included in this training, comment that in the chat. We can get that to you, and we'll see you next week, guys. Talk soon.